Hey, happy Thursday. Welcome. Welcome to the weekly double dip here. Pastor Troy, good to see all of you. I'm going to go ahead and shut down Restream real quick so that's less bandwidth being taken up. All right. Well, welcome to the party. I hope you're doing well today. If you are new to the double dip, it's a time for me to just kind of share what's on my mind, kind of reflect a little bit on the message from this past week, to look ahead a little bit, reflect on, maybe some things that were left on the cutting room floor, on the editing room floor as I was, running through my notes and trying to formalize what God was saying to me throughout the week. And so last week we talked about Jesus being the true vine. And in this video too, I want to talk about some of the things that have been going on in the world a little bit, talk about Holy Week just for a minute. Won't be long. Toby, you just went outside. You're fine. Literally half an hour ago. You're fine, man. He does it every time. It's all good though. So yeah, we're going to be in John chapter 10. John chapter 15. So if you want to follow along, I'm not going to read a whole lot, but I'm going to talk about that. I'm going to talk just for a minute about Lil Nas X. I know I'm a couple days late on that one, but that's because I tried to go live and my son melted down a little bit, the baby, as babies do, and then apparently I had audio issues. So if you're able to hear me now, why don't you go ahead and let me know. Apparently the dog will not let this go until I let him out. So that was great timing. So I'm going to turn the volume down on my mic so you don't hear all this. I'll be right back. All right, can you hear me? Here we go. All right, so I'm going to jump on real quick and share this to my personal page. Because here's the thing about Facebook, man. Is it even on there? Are we live? Yes, we are. I'm going to share this. Let me see here. Let me interact as myself. So the problem with Facebook is the algorithm does not like groups anymore, especially organizations and businesses. And so it does a terrible job of putting our stuff in front of people. So the more you interact, the more you engage, the more we talk and, converse and stuff like that, the more the algorithm will say, hey, this is something people care about. So it's all about organic, reach and stuff like that. So do me a favor, share this, like it, not because I need like 1 million followers or anything, but because literally for the church's page, it doesn't send our stuff out at all. So that's just the way it is right now. So unless you've got like 1 million followers and people interacting with you already, it's hard to grow organically on Facebook right now. Communicate with the people who are already connected to you and already care. It's difficult, man. So yeah, I'm going to call this the True Vine, Lil Nas X, and Holy Week. Let's go. So I'm going to just take a couple minutes of your time. It's a busy week. It's a crazy week. We're getting things ready here for Easter. Man, I'm super excited. Easter is going to be great. We're hanging out at Devin and Isaac Hammond's house. We're going to be in their backyard. There's going to be an Easter egg hunt after the worship service. We're going to have acoustic worship. It's going to be a great time. And I'm preaching. I'm going to preach like my life depends on it, or like somebody's life depends on it. So, but what I want to talk about real quick is, like I said, the double dip. This past weekend, I talked about Jesus being the true vine. And Jesus as the true vine. Let me make sure. Is there audio? Is there audio right now? Yes, there is. All right, very good. So we'll get started in just a second, I promise. All right, and we're back. So we're talking this week about Jesus being the true vine. And as I was thinking about this, there's one point that I didn't really highlight a lot, but I want to mention it to us today as we hang out for a minute. So he says in John chapter 15 verse 4, he says, "Remain in me, and I will remain in you. No branch can bear fruit by itself. It must remain in the vine. Neither can you bear fruit unless you remain in me." Verse 5, "I am the vine, you are the branches. If a man remains, or a person remains in me, and I in them, they will bear much fruit." Much fruit. Apart from me, you can do nothing. You can bear no real fruit. Okay? And sometimes Jesus spoke in hyperbole for sure. And he's trying to get his point across that when we stay connected to him, when we keep our faith and our trust and our identity in him, we produce fruit. We become more like him. We share, the good news of God with others. Like I talked all about that on Sunday. And if you missed that, go back, check out our YouTube page and watch that sermon for sure. And other sermons on Jesus being the true vine, that kind of thing. But I would just encourage you to check that out. But it hit me this week. So I'm looking at that message and I'm thinking about everything that's going on right now with, the controversy around rapper Lil Nas X. And I was going to, like I said, I was going to respond to that earlier in the week. And then there was no audio. I was having issues streaming and my son started crying in the middle of all of it. And I just shut it down. But I've thought about it. So if you didn't know, last week, Lil Nas put out a music video, and then Monday he put out a shoe, and it's all like a promotional thing. The shoe supports the music video and the album that he's dropping and all of that. And the music video is super filled with satanic images and it's this fall from Eden and into hell. And by the end of it, he's dancing with the devil. Anyway, so it's crazy. I haven't watched the video, the whole thing, but I've seen highlights, I've seen clips from it. But it's all tied into his story. It's tied into his story as a young man who's come out, and how in the church he always heard this condemnation, heard this you're going to hell, and if this is who you are and this is how you act, this is what's going to happen. And so for him, he's like, all right, if that's what you're going to tell me, then I'm just going to flaunt it, and I'm going to say, I don't care if I offend you because this is what you told me. So he went all in our face. Shock value, got Christians all fired up, man, I can't believe somebody would do this, and the world today is just going to hell in a handbasket, and it's crazy. And then he put out the shoe to support it, the Satan shoe. Nike got backlash, but they didn't put it out. It was actually through a third party, and so it was this whole big controversy. If you missed it, you were under a rock this week. And I've thought a lot about this, and I want to talk about this idea of Jesus as the true vine for a minute, because as I read what he says, you can't do anything apart from me. And I think part of the problem that the church has had over the last 5 decades or so, I'll say, is that our focus so much on morality, it has taken center stage, right? So we've viewed it as our job to be the morality police and to make sure that people live according to biblical values, and we hold a certain standard in terms of people's relationships and all of that. And so we've been so focused in so many parts of the church, so focused on keeping people doing the right thing, that I think in some ways we've practically lost track of the gospel. We've lost track of what Jesus came to do in the first place. And that's really reminding us in John 15 that it's about what vine you're connected to. And so we're going to naturally get our identity and our our inclinations and desires from the vine that we're connected to. So if we're connected to Jesus, most of the time, we're going to get that from him. Now, none of us are perfect. We don't stay connected to the vine 100% of the time. And frankly, there are times, I'm going to turn this a little bit, starting to get some sun coming in through the window, where like, man, we just don't live according to the way Jesus designed us and saved us to be. But my message here is to Christians, and frankly, we should understand what's going on. Like, we should not be shocked. We just shouldn't be, because one, the Bible tells us that in ourselves we are dead in our sin and transgression. The Bible tells us that like this is just our state, you know. So why do we in the church sit here and go, the world is just, how are people gonna, how could he do this? How could he do that? First of all, there's nothing new under the sun. We know that. And so we should not be surprised by this kind of stuff. Like, why are we shocked? Why am I reading comments on Instagram talking about, I can't believe the things that, like, come on, man. Paul says we all used to be there. We, in our own ways, like we were all there at one time, and in our own flesh and our own nature, when we give into that over the Holy Spirit, we're already there anyway. It's not like we're, you know, I mean, maybe we're not putting it quite as publicly, but at the end of the day, there's a playing field that is leveled at the cross. And I just want to remind Christians, man, our job is not to like be the morality police. Our calling is to disciple and share the gospel with people. Like, that's our job. That's our calling. And so in these times, like, yeah, is it a bit much? I would say so. Do I agree with what he did? No. But as a dad, I'd better be doing my job to stay in touch with my kids' lives the best that I can, to have these conversations. So, I mean, you're the guardian of your household at the end of the day. And Lil Nas is not going to be the one to determine where your son or daughter spends eternity. It's going to be you as a parent. It's going to be us as communities sharing the gospel, saying, hey, Jesus died for you. He loves you. He's not kicking you out because of your affiliation or your, like when I read the scriptures, I see the Jesus who looks at the woman caught in adultery and says, hey, where are your condemners? You know, where are those accusing you? Is no one here? After he, you know, basically tells the religious leaders, he says, hey, whoever's without sin, throw the first stone on this woman. And she says, nowhere, sir, there's no one here. And he says, neither do I condemn you. Now go and sin no more. So Jesus came to set us free. Jesus came to push away that condemnation. And, you know, yeah, he calls us to go and sin no more. So it's a balanced thing. But man, we as the church spent so much time, do not sin, do not sin, do not sin, do not sin, do not sin. And we miss, I think, the fact that there's more to it, you know. So it's all, for me, it ties back to that idea that apart from Jesus, we can do nothing. That in ourselves, of course we're gonna live crazy. Of course we're gonna give into debauchery. Of course we're gonna act nuts. Like, that's the way we are in ourselves. But that's the goodness of the gospel, that Jesus came and died to tie us into the vine that gives true life. And as we connect with him, then we produce much fruit. So the job of the church is to call people to get connected to the vine. That's it. And you know, where there are places of injustice, we need to stand up for injustice. And I do think we need to say, hey, like, these things aren't appropriate. You know what I mean? That there's something about our faith that, like, why is it that people just take it so lightly? And I mean, I don't think we would ever imagine somebody throwing out religious symbolism, say, around Buddhism or Islam, the way that happens. But I don't have a persecution complex. I genuinely think it's because we treat people like trash. So what do we expect? You know? Like, what do we expect when we constantly tell people, hey, you don't belong here, you're not loved, you're not welcomed? Like, what do we expect from people? So, you know, after a while, it just becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. So I want to call the church back to a place of love. I want to call us back to a place of the gospel, not that says sin is okay, live however you want, not cheap grace, but a transformative grace, a grace that says that you get connected to the vine and then you produce fruit. You get connected to your source and suddenly you change and God works on you. And he might work on you at a pace that isn't the way I wanted or I would expect it to happen, but it's going to be his timing. Our job is to come alongside one another, hold each other accountable when we need to, and say, hey, this is who God's calling us to be. But ultimately, when it comes to the world, we're called to preach the gospel. So stop freaking out, right? Do I think it's, like I said, out of care, like it's not a good look? Absolutely, I think so. But if we remember what we're called to as the church, it changes how we view these things. So remember, just stay connected to the vine. Remember that the world, the philosophies and lifestyle that lives apart from Jesus is not connected to the vine. So it's not going to produce the kind of fruit that Jesus expects of us. So why are we surprised? You know what I'm saying? So we love grapes here in the Miller house, and when we take those grapes, a week later, after the branch that those grapes are growing on, once that starts to lose its nutritional value, its nourishment, like those grapes start to shrivel, they fall off, they die, they're not good. What do we expect, man? And that's how we live. Whenever we try to live our lives in our own power and our own understanding, we start to shrivel up, we start to stink. So I just want to encourage you, stay connected to the vine, and remember, this is Holy Week. This is the week where we celebrate the greatest news that there is. And so, of course, the enemy is going to come against it. Of course, that's going to happen. But we're called to say, Jesus rose from the grave. Jesus died. Jesus came to save me. And man, I'm grateful that we get to celebrate this week together. And nothing's going to stop it. Nothing's going to stop it. So those are my thoughts today. Let me know what you think. Let me know in the comments, how did you react to Little Nas and the Satan shoe and all of that. And again, don't hear me saying that it's all good and he can do what he wants, or don't be offended by it. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying we shouldn't be shocked. And our job as the church is not to be the morality police. Our job is to preach the gospel and to live the gospel and start treating groups of people better than we do, and start loving people with the grace of God and letting him do the transformative work. That's what I'm saying. So my thought is tonight, we celebrate Maundy Thursday, when Jesus was betrayed, when he celebrated the Passover meal, and when he ultimately tomorrow will go to the cross, die for our sins, and purify us from the things that make us unclean and unworthy to enter the presence of God. So as he says, I am the true vine. Remember, he gave his life for us. He died for us. He shed his blood. He was brutally beaten and murdered at the hands of the religious leaders and the Roman government because he didn't fit into the box and in the mold that they wanted him to. But I'm grateful that he used what the enemy meant for evil and used it to save all of creation. Remember that tonight. Remember that tonight. Remember that tomorrow. He died for you. He loves you. No matter what you've been through, no matter what you've faced, what you've done to other people, the burdens you have, he loves you. So walk in that truth today and celebrate that. Try to take some time. We're gonna celebrate communion as a church on Sunday and commemorate, what he did for us this weekend. And we get to celebrate Easter. Man, I'm fired up. Join us Sunday at 10:30, 3 or 5. The 3 and 5 are rebroadcasts. It's going to be outdoors, acoustic style worship. Right now, we're still building the team and things like that, pulling it all together. And I'm excited. We got rehearsal tonight. I've got equipment in my closet. It's going to be awesome. It's going to be a great time. I can't wait. There's an Easter egg hunt. So if you're in the South Hills area, you've got kids, bring them out. We're going to have some Easter eggs and they're going to be scattered throughout the yard. It's going to be a lot of fun. And I just can't wait, man. I can't wait. So that's where we're at. I love you all. And I pray you stay connected to the vine this week so that you can produce much fruit, much joy, peace, patience, kindness, love, all of those things. You will produce much fruit as you remain in him. So I love you. I'll see you guys next week for the next Double Dip. Let me sign off here. And again, if you've got thoughts or concerns or prayer requests, anything, let me know, and I'd love to follow up with you. And I will see you in the next one.